This story begins with Hakuto in front of his computer screen, playing a game called Infinite Game. He's about to stop playing forever and say goodbye to that world, but at that moment, he ends up traveling to a very strange dimension. When he regains consciousness, he finds himself in some kind of forest, and both his appearance and his voice have changed. All of this feels very strange to him, so he looks at a nearby lake and sees his reflection, realizing he has become the character from the game. To be more precise, he is now Hakuto, the Demon King of Infinite Game, the game he himself created. Suddenly, a blonde girl appears, her bangs covering one eye, and she's seriously injured. He takes on the persona of the Demon King and asks the girl if she can understand him. She responds, clearly terrified. That's because there's a monster chasing her, and they need to get out of there as quickly as possible. But at that moment, the creature falls from the sky right between them. Upon seeing the beast, Hakuto asks her if it's her pet, or something like that. She says she needs to control it better, but the monster ignores everything and slaps Hakuto across the face, making him furious. That's when he uses his Demon King power. Red lightning bursts from his body, lifting the demon into the air and blasting the creature right afterward. At that moment, Hakuto realizes he can't use his admin privileges, and that he wasn't the one who created these characters. Haku becomes terrified, falls to the ground, recognizes him as the true Demon King, and begs him not to devour her. Hakuto tries to play it off, telling her he's not the Demon King and that he doesn't intend to eat her, for now. He then asks the girl's name, and she replies that she's Haku, and explains where they are now. This place is called the Kingdom of Sacred Light, where they worship the cherubim, a being that sealed the demon long ago. Below them are the three sacred maidens, the sacred knights, and an organization called the Sacred Church. This way, Hakuto starts to get an idea of how this fantasy world works, which seems to have come straight out of a novel. But before anything else, he tells Haku to go take a bath and clean herself up, since she's filthy and covered in dirt. He decides to wait at a distance and asks her to shout when she's done washing up. So Haku happily enters the water, still limping due to her poor physical condition, and starts bathing. She notices he's messing with some kind of floating screen. Hakuto is thrilled, thinking he now has admin privileges. But that's when Hakuto activates a small black portal and walks through it to retrieve something. Haku thinks it's kitchen utensils to cook her, but quickly realizes he brought her clothes and soap, even though she doesn't really know what that is. He steps back once more and notices his skill points are dropping. He'll need to earn them by fighting and learning. Since he used those points to summon the clothes and soap, he lost what he could have used and now needs to recover them. After that, Haku thanks the hero for the clothes and soap, and he asks her if those demons usually appear in the forest. She immediately says no, that would mean the end of the kingdom, and warns that Grawly would start showing up there regularly. This being, according to Haku, was defeated and sealed by the cherubim back in the Sanctuary of Wishes, in that forest. So Hakuto asks her to accompany him to Grawly's lair or hideout to investigate further. Suddenly, Hakuto notices Haku's leg is injured. He asks her to climb on his back so he can carry her to Grawly's lair. At that moment, the girl starts crying, saying that everyone in the village always treated her like a nuisance, calling her filthy and useless. Haku says she used to collect the village's trash for sanitation, which is why she was always dirty. People used to say that if they touched her, they'd become as filthy as she was, saying she smelled bad. So they expelled her and offered her as a sacrifice to the demon. Upon hearing this story, Hakuto tells her that the task she was doing was very important and carries her on his back without hesitation. After that, he steps away a bit and tells her that bodies like theirs can be cleaned with no problem. After a bath, everything's fine. This makes Haku very happy, and she continues the rest of the journey chatting with Hakuto while he explains a few things to her. It seems she can understand and read everything he writes in a notebook without any trouble, which shows that their languages are very similar. After that, he asks her if the temple they're looking for is one of those places where you pray and toss in money to make all your wishes come true. She replies that it's the special place where the cherubim sealed the demon, but that it can also grant great power. So, after some time, they finally reach the entrance to the Temple of Wishes. But Hakuto quickly senses something's off. The smell of something isn't right. He tells Haku to wait at the door, and when he enters, he realizes the foul odor comes from the number of dead bodies scattered around. As he moves forward, he finds a strange statue called Idol, which immediately speaks to the Demon King. She says she has granted many human wishes and will now grant just one more. After that, he asks if she was the one who summoned the demon and also summoned him, but she replies that she wasn't. It turns out that right behind Hakuto, there are some dead men inside a summoning circle, and the woman explains they were the ones who did that. As for the demon Grell, she believes he broke his seal with his own power and came back to stop the arrival of the Demon King, but instead made those woods his home and started demanding sacrifices from nearby villages. Then he asks if she can send him back to his world, and she says she can't, since it would interfere with a wish already granted. But instead, she makes a skull-shaped ring appear in his hand. This irritates Hakuto, who sees no use in it, and the statue crumbles to dust, having completed its life cycle. At nightfall, Hakuto asks Ako if there's a nearby town and tells her to draw a map so he can get there. She becomes very distressed and asks if he doesn't want her to come along, but the thing is, Hakuto assumes she wouldn't want to go, so they agree that Ako will come with him, since she can't just go back to her old village after being offered as a sacrifice. But before heading to the city, Ako asks Hakuto to stop by her village so she can grab a few things he'll clearly need. When they get there, the landscape shifts to a nearly deserted place. Ako explains that water is a luxury she never had access to, which is why she enjoyed that day she got to swim and wash herself so much. Soon they reach the entrance to the village, and Hakuto sets Ako down from his back. Then, he uses a skill to become completely invisible. Ako walks ahead to a group of boys who come out to meet her, and Hakuto speaks to her via telepathy to calm things down. But the villagers immediately start cursing at her for being there, since she had already been sent off as a sacrifice, and they begin throwing rocks at her. Seeing this, Hakuto gets furious, and suddenly, the ring on his finger starts talking, telling him to eliminate everyone if he deems them unworthy. The ring is actually a powerful demon capable of killing anyone it wants, and it offers Hakuto this power. He struggles not to give in to the demon and steps in between the boys and Ako, stopping the rocks with his hand. Calmly, Hakuto lights a cigarette and asks Ako to go get her things, but when she does, she calls him Demon King. This terrifies the boys, who start insulting Ako again, saying she's a burden and the ruin of the village. In response, Hakuto throws one of the knives he keeps in his coat, and when it hits one of the houses, it sets everything on fire. He quickly puts Ako on his back and gets her out of there, apologizing for not being able to recover her belongings, though she doesn't mind. Then he asks her if she feels okay about what happened. She laughs and says she feels a lot better. And so the two of them head off together toward the holy capital in the middle of the night while Ako's village burns behind them. Meanwhile, we see a carriage passing through a mountainous area. Inside is a pink-haired girl named Luna. She is one of the sacred maidens, along with her sister, and they're on their way to find and subdue the Demon King. Next, we see a large man sharpening his sword, also in the mountains. He is the leader of the Mole clan, named Wengu, and he receives word from one of his men that Luna is headed their way. At first, Wengu thinks she's coming to subjugate his group and prepares to fight, but the other man quickly denies this. Meanwhile, Hakuto and Ako continue their journey until it starts getting dark again. They decide to stop in a rocky area to rest for the night. Hakuto knows that simply sleeping out in the open is a death sentence in Infinity Game, so he summons a series of objects. Combining them, he shows Ako that they form a rocket-proof base so they can safely spend the night inside. Once they're inside, Ako sees a small hot water tank for bathing, and Hakuto tells her to use it. He apologizes for it being small and promises that in the future, he'll be able to summon hot springs for her. She gets in the water and takes a short bath while Hakuto continues thinking about how he's going to get back to his world. It's clear he has no command to return, and if he was summoned by the idol, then he'll need to find something of equal power to go back. So he hopes to find the answers in the capital when they arrive. After that, Ako finishes her bath and goes up to the Demon King. For the first time, she hears that she smells nice, and that makes her really happy because he's the only person who has ever said that to her or treated her well like this. Then Ako runs to the bed to sleep, and Hakuto is a little startled by her boldness, because, as he explains, even though he may look older, he's actually quite young, but she doesn't understand what's going on. The next day, Hakuto and his girl continue their journey, but soon they're detected by bandits under Wengu's command. He believes the two of them must be bait from the Sacred Maiden and that they'll attack him if he gets close, so the leader orders a quick attack and retreat. The group of men launches arrows at Hakuto and Ako. He detects the ambush in advance and blocks the arrows with shields with no problem at all. They're all low level. Soon the group led by Wengu shows up and introduces themselves to Hakuto. Upon seeing Wengu, Hakuto thinks he looks exactly like the manager from where he works and calls him Simon, but later he realizes it's just a strong resemblance. Wengu doesn't respond to the name, and they don't know who he's talking about. Then the mole leader asks if Hakuto uses magic, but since he refuses to answer, another person tries to force him and threatens to use violence if the old man doesn't cooperate. This really ticks Hakuto off, and he starts arguing with them for calling him that. In the middle of the argument, Ako asks Hakuto to stop and calls him the Demon King. The bandits immediately start mocking him, but Hakuto lifts one finger and launches one of them into the air. The guy smashes his head against a pile of rocks, causing the others to charge in. But right then, Luna's voice is heard, and beams of light strike all the bandits. Wengu orders an immediate retreat, while Hakuto protects Ako from the maiden's attack. At that moment, he realizes his barrier didn't activate, because she's on a higher level. But even so, he faces her, and tells Luna she should apologize for attacking without understanding the situation. Luna replies that her duty is to purge all evil, and Hakuto says all he sees is a lunatic brat who doesn't live up to her name. That really upsets Luna, and she orders her guards to capture him. At that moment, Hakuto manages to activate his barrier, since the others are of a lower level than him, and he gets rid of everything effortlessly. After that, he grabs Luna by the arms and starts spanking her as punishment for what she did to them, clearly enjoying the situation quite a bit. When the punishment ends, Hakuto steals a bag of coins that was clearly Luna's and continues on his way with Ako, although we can see that Luna's carriage is following behind with a few soldiers. She's deeply hurt and angry about what happened. Well, after taking a bunch of spankings, who wouldn't be, right? Hakuto and Ako arrive at a city called Yahoo, and no, not the search engine. Anyway, they stop there to spend some time and buy a few things with Luna's money. First, Hakuto invites Ako to eat grilled meat, and he thinks it's the most delicious thing he's ever tasted. After that, they find an inn, and Hakuto asks for the best room available. The receptionist says it'll cost 1 gold coin, and Ako immediately asks the Demon King not to spend all that money on it. The man is very impressed with the title the girl gave him, but Hakuto clarifies it's a misunderstanding. Then, telepathically, he asks Ako not to call him that in public anymore. Soon after, they enter the room prepared for them, and they see that it's quite luxurious with a beautiful view. While they're there, Hakuto tells Ako that one day he'll give her an even better place to live, her own castle. Then he invites her to a fine dinner that night. But first, he decides to take her to a clothing store to buy something that will make her look more elegant and beautiful. They're attended by a man who is initially horrified by the clothes Ako is wearing, but his interest soon shifts. He offers a large gold coin to dress her in the finest clothes in the store. Without wasting a second, the man calls a group of well-dressed women who take Ako away to find a suitable outfit. After a while, she appears wearing a beautiful white dress that makes her look like a princess. And Hakuto notices a detail. Ako has heterochromatic eyes, different colored eyes. But he had never realized it before, as her hair, which was always dirty, used to cover them. Still, he decides not to say anything, figuring it's not something he should bring up out of nowhere. After this experience, Hakuto takes her to a luxurious restaurant and orders a good, expensive wine. This draws the attention of the locals, and they start to take even more notice of the strange pair sitting nearby. The night goes on, and they enjoy a great dinner, at least until Ako asks Hakuto why he treats her so well. This makes him start questioning why he's going through all this effort for someone like her. But Ako speaks up again and says she'd do anything for him. And just then, Luna bursts through the restaurant door, yelling. She's furious that Hakuto spent the money as if it were his own. He asks if it wasn't she who gave him the money as a gift, and she snaps back that she only did it so he'd stop hitting her. Hakuto then tells her to sit down and stop making such a scene if she doesn't want to be punished again. So Luna, frustrated, sits down to eat with them. To make up for it, Hakuto orders a bottle of wine for every table and apologizes. Luna is soon served, and Ako tries to calm her, saying Hakuto is actually a good guy. But Luna replies that there's no way someone like the Demon King could be a good person. Later, Hakuto and Ako return to the inn, and she comments that he may be kind, but sometimes he's cruel, like he was with Luna. Hakuto defends himself, saying he always acts like a gentleman, and for that reason, he chooses who deserves to be treated well and who doesn't. At that moment, Hakuto notices that Ako still has an injured foot and can barely walk, so he carries her bridal style back to the inn. She tells him he really is a very kind person to her. After they've been at the inn for a while, someone knocks on the door. When Hakuto opens it, he finds Luna. She says she's there because of him, that she has no money to stay anywhere, and that she had to send her troops back home. Hakuto gives her back the pouch with the leftover money and tells her to leave now. At this, Luna gets angry and says she's going to spend the night with them, since they literally paid for the room with her money. So, despite their protests, she ends up sharing the room with them. Meanwhile, we see a horde of bandits heading toward the city, along with an ornate carriage. One of the men shouts to the woman inside the carriage that they're almost at the city. Inside, we see a blonde woman who is clearly furious at Luna for causing so much trouble. A while later, Akko and Luna take a bath together. While there, Luna asks Akko to call her sister Luna if she wants to. It sounds a bit odd, so Akko is a little frightened. She doesn't think it's proper to treat a sacred maiden with such familiarity. But Luna responds by saying that she decides what's proper herself, and that if they're already close enough to bathe together, then Akko can call her that. Afterward, the two girls leave the bath, and Hakuto asks Luna to tell him everything she knows about the cherub. Although she initially refuses, Akko explains that Hakuto doesn't know much about it, and assures her there's no harm in telling him. So Luna reveals that the cherub died when Grellum was sealed, since the cherub used all his power to seal this demon king Grell. However, there are still two people who protect the kingdom of Holy Light. These people are the orphan Seraphim, so she says that they are not in danger over there. At that very moment, we are shown once again the mad Saint Queen Sakina, the woman from the carriage earlier. She's plotting to drag Angel back home. When she speaks, one of her men responds, saying that defeating the Demon King should be a man's job, and that someone already defeated Grell. Therefore, rumors of the Demon King's existence might actually be true. However, Queen Sakina doesn't believe it. She thinks it's all just a plan by her older sister to stand out and make herself more important. Back with Hakuto, he asks Luna where the orphan Seraphim are, but her answer disappoints him deeply. According to Luna, no one has heard about them for centuries, meaning they might be a legend or just a rumor. Clearly, they could be alive or dead, but no one knows anything concrete about them. Luna also says that in the Temple of Wishes, there's a statue that people believe represents the orphan. But according to her, it's just a lie. That makes Hakuto remember the words of the idol, which used to be a statue that people worshipped, but was broken due to too many bad wishes being granted. After a while, we see Hakuto walking with the box, looking for a place where he can make some money by selling objects. So he ends up going into a shop where he offers the shopkeeper a bowl he made himself using his skills. With little effort, Hakuto manages to trick the vendor and asks for a large gold coin in exchange for the contraption, and the man agrees, clearly convinced by rumors that Hakuto is of royal descent, that he's a kind and generous knight. But Hakuto denies all of that, trying to seem humble. Then he asks the vendor to resell his bowl for 5 gold coins. At first, the man is a little surprised by the request, but immediately agrees to fulfill his wish. And Hakuto leaves there very, very happy. Now, for a brief moment, we see some men who are part of the Demon Lord's cult. They tell each other they weren't able to summon him. However, their actions ended up paralyzing the sacred maidens. And that's a great chance to take them out. Then we see all of them speaking at the same time, repeating that they're going to eliminate the maidens. At that moment, a locked chest is shown, while Hakuto continues on his way. He ends up encountering the woman from the carriage, that crazy killer saint, who is also a sacred maiden, and she's looking for her younger sister Luna. She says she wants the fake demon lord to stop pretending to be someone he's not. Right then, Luna appears and tells her sister she went to the demon lord specifically to subdue him, and that she managed to make him surrender. She also says she made him a much kinder person. However, the queen thinks she's lying and says she should be at home asleep instead of running around facing these kinds of dangers. At that moment, the cultists appear and attack the queen with their powers, but the man from before protects her. After losing the element of surprise, the queen charges at the enemies together with Luna, and the two end up killing several of them. The men protecting them also join the fight to help, and we see that the sisters handle the situation with no problem. Meanwhile, Hakuto hides on the side, just observing everything without getting involved. Then he notices something very important. Those men are wearing the same clothes as the ones who were killed at the temple near the summoning circle. Suddenly, one of the hooded figures approaches the scene with the same chest from earlier, and he says that inside it lies his precious darkness. But he doesn't care about that as long as he can destroy the sacred maidens. So he opens the chest and releases a strange black mist with claws. When this mist touches the queen's men, they immediately fall to the ground, and when it reaches the others too, they drop the same way. The cultists take advantage of the maiden's momentary weakness and fire arrows, trying to kill them. But then suddenly Fuji enters the scene, and all the arrows are blocked by his own body, deflecting the fatal blow. That causes the cultist to fall to the ground. At this moment, the ring starts talking to Hakuto again. The demon suggests he throw a grenade into the middle and end it all, but Hakuto refuses. After all, that would also kill the maidens, and he would become the most hated and wanted person in the kingdom, something he clearly doesn't want to let happen. Out of nowhere, something makes Hakuto fall to the ground, and he can't hold up his own body. But then a screen appears right in front of him. Suddenly he sees an option called Change Character, and he manages to press it before the black mist reaches him too. Then we see a beam of light that clears all the dark mist where he was. And now we can see Hakuto, who looks completely different. No one recognizes him, because now he has short white hair. He's also wearing white clothes, even though his chest is exposed. His presence makes the cultists think he's a bandit of the Sacred Maiden, and they decide to attack him immediately. Hakuto gets irritated at the fact that cowards like them are bothering him like this, and even worse, scaring women and children. He reacts to the attacks, and this time we see that he's only using his fist to take down the enemies with absurd strength. In a matter of seconds, he shows insane speed, and with a clean punch, he takes out his opponents, making them flee. The queen gets flustered when he refers to her as a woman, but at the same time, she admires the overwhelming strength Hakuto is showing. Then she tries to show Luna that her sister is lying half unconscious on the ground, and she gets furious. Meanwhile, that group of Satanists tries to escape to get away from Hakuto, but he sends out one final attack to stop them. This attack is basically him punching the ground, and with that punch, he creates a massive crack in the earth, from which a giant white dragon emerges. In seconds, the dragon catches up with the guys, and Hakuto handles everything without hesitation. Next, Hakuto goes to talk to the girls and asks if the queen is okay. She gets surprised and excited because Hakuto is so kind, but then they start asking what his name is over and over again. So he replies that his name is Zero, and if she ever needs help, she just has to come to him without hesitation. Then he asks her to take care of the wounded and runs away. Meanwhile, the queen fantasizes that she has finally found the ideal man. We find out that the guy who was carrying the chest managed to escape, and at least he was able to recover Hades. But now he's super worried because he thinks the maiden has allied with the dragons and the Kingdom of Holy Light. Shortly after that, we see Hakuto all sad in an alley, and he starts criticizing the stupid things he said while he was Zero. At that moment, Aku shows up, and Hakuto asks her if she saw anything about that guy in white from before. She tells him she was at the hotel, but Luna had told her a bit about what happened, about the white dragon. Then, Aku asks Hakuto if he wants to meet Zero, but he completely refuses because they're the same person. Later on, we see two new characters in a tavern, Yukikaze and Mikan, two local bounty hunters. That day, they were looking for something that would give them a good haul until they see a wanted poster with Hakuto's face and the reward being offered for him. They ask the bartender about the price, and he tells them it's insanely high because people think he's a demon king. As night falls, Hakuto's journey continues, but this time in Luna's carriage, with her tagging along just to be annoying. She had sent her men back home, and now thinks Hakuto is her new bodyguard, which is why she keeps traveling with them, even though Hakuto doesn't like the idea at all. But Aku is super excited to travel with her two friends, so Hakuto doesn't have much of a choice, and keeps going. On the way, Hakuto asks Luna to change clothes. After all, what she wears is way too flashy. At first, she thinks that's just an excuse and refuses, but Aku says Hakuto picked that outfit for her on purpose. Meanwhile, we see Mikan and Yukikaze trekking through the desert, hunting down their target, the sandwolf. These creatures are dangerous and have wiped out entire cities before. As they walk, a curious bit of conversation comes up about Yukikaze's chest. He's actually a boy, even though you'd never guess it from his looks and behavior. Mikan seems a bit annoyed that he keeps talking about his assets, but before long, the sword fighter hears something strange. Out of nowhere, through the desert sand and dust, a huge pack of wolves appears. It's way too many for just the two of them, so the girls are forced to run. Around the same time, Hakuto stops the carriage so Luna can change clothes. He steps outside to have a smoke, and just seconds later, he sees a massive sand cloud coming toward them. Out in front are the two girls, Yukikaze and Mikan, running like hell. Hakuto immediately sees a chance to rack up some combat points, but once he realizes how many wolves there are, he starts to hesitate. The girls run toward him, yelling at him to get out of there. With all the commotion, Aku and Luna peek out to see what's going on. Hakuto orders them to stay hidden and checks if his barrier can hold back the wolves. Yukikaze and Mikan take cover behind the carriage, and one of the wolves leaps at Hakuto, but his barrier works just fine. Seeing he's got a shot, Hakuto uses his first skill, blades glowing with red light. They hit the wolves and he takes out a bunch of them in a single move, which surprises the bounty hunters a lot. To keep going, Hakuto uses sand vortex to freeze the wolves, finishing off most of them. The rest flee, scared of the threat Hakuto poses, and disappear quickly. Then Hakuto returns to the carriage and tells the girls to be more careful and not drag others into their mess. As Hakuto's group moves on, the two girls stay there in shock, and Mikan asks if that guy was the one on the wanted poster. But Kikasa, being how she is already thinking about doing some naughty stuff with Hakuto, so she decides to go to the capital and get all dolled up for him. Not long after, Hakuto and his group arrive at an oasis in the middle of the desert and stop to rest for a while. There, Hakuto summons a new base again to protect against enemies. Ako and Luna go in to check it out, and Hakuto notices again how Ako is walking because of her leg. He offers the coachman to go inside the base too, but the man says he'd rather stay outside and take care of the horse. Hakuto offers him a cigarette and praises him for not panicking when the wolf pack appeared. After that, Hakuto checks his stats again, and also his administrator attributes. He finds out he can now summon an ally he had when he was the Demon King, but he needs to be very careful about who he picks. After thinking for a bit, he decides to summon Yu, a highly skilled doctor, but extremely sadistic, who doesn't hesitate to use people for her own goals. So he summons her, and the woman shows up right there through a light portal. She recognizes him as her boss, and that's when Hakuto has to explain to his subordinate that they're no longer in the world she knows, but in a totally different one. He also tells her that he doesn't know why they were brought there, but that he needs her help to get closer to the truth. The first thing Yu suggests is to create a place like the City Without Night. To do that, she went to the final zone of the Infinite Game, a high-tech area prepared for any kind of situation. But Hakuto tells her that creating something like that in this world would make everyone think it's the base of the Demon King. So first, Hakuto proposes turning the current base into a field hospital. He gives his assistant a set of rules. She's forbidden from killing anyone. She must learn everything about this world and gather intel for him. He then introduces his assistant to Ako and Luna. Even though the maid thinks she might be his lover or something, Hakuto ignores that and asks Yu to examine Ako's leg and do whatever she can to help. Yu immediately walks up to Ako and grabs her leg to inspect it. One of her hands starts mutating strangely, and we see each of her fingers turning into a medical tool as she injects her with syringes and scalpels. She warns Ako that it might hurt a bit, and within seconds, she heals Ako's leg completely, even erasing the scar. The effect is immediate, and Ako can now walk without any pain. Then Hakuto tells Yu to wait inside the base because he wants to take Ako to practice walking around the oasis. The result is so good that the girl can run without any problems and spends the whole outing running happily. At one point, she even asks Hakuto to pinch her cheek because it all feels like a dream, too good to be real. He reassures her, saying it's not a dream, and Ako asks him if he can promise to stay with her forever. That question makes Hakuto a bit uncomfortable, and he says that's something meant for the partner she'll choose in the future. What he doesn't know is that Ako has already decided who she wants to be with when she grows up. Him, of course. They return to the base, and Hakuto sincerely thanks Yu for the work she did, giving her a pat on the shoulder. He also tells her he's counting on her from now on to work together. Those words make Yu fall in love with him. She suddenly feels a deep admiration for the hero and senses the love in his words. And right here, for the first time, we see the start of Hakuto's harem. Yu is sure he's changed, and that he's not the same boss she once knew. Now he's kind and respectful, so she decides to stay by his side and figure out what her feelings really are. During that time, we see that the two girls, Yukikaze and Mikan, returned from the desert and are now drinking alcohol at a tavern while talking about what happened out there. They tell the people at the tavern that they met the so-called Demon King and that he was able to wipe out an entire pack of wolves with just one finger. That makes Mikan think he's a seriously dangerous guy. But Yukikaze only wants to climax hard with Hakuto, despite her partner's constant complaints. Yukikaze reminds her that he saved them and that she should at least be grateful. Mikan, annoyed, just orders more beer and says she doesn't want to hear it. Meanwhile, the Satanists gather with their leader, whom they call Lord Utopia, to report the situation. This man is seriously pissed at his cultists for using Hades and still achieving absolutely nothing. One of the hooded men tries to justify it by saying a Dragon King will appear, referring to Hakuto, who became Zero. But that excuse is worthless, because Lord Utopia has another plan in mind. He offers more sacrifices to Hades to make him stronger. To do that, he starts collapsing the Temple of Hades, and in fact, begins to destroy the entire sacred capital, letting Hades consume everything good and evil within it. Elsewhere, Hakuto arrives by carriage at a small, somewhat abandoned village, which turns out to be Luna's hometown. As they get closer, Hakuto notices how rundown everything looks, and the situation doesn't seem good. He asks Luna if she's okay with it, and she responds that someone from the church has been put in charge of taking care of the place. According to her, it's not her job to govern or manage the territory. But that only makes Hakuto think the opposite, that the church and the nobles are just using Luna to gain support, without really valuing her. Seeing the whole situation, Hakuto asks Luna to give him a place in the village so he can open a clinic to treat wounded people. Aku gets super excited about the idea, thinking that if it's you doing the healing, people from all over the kingdom will come. Luna guides them to a part of the village where they can set up the clinic, but Hakuto thinks the place is too small for his plans. He also wants to install a hot spring next to the medical camp later to bring in more money. Soon after, the person in charge of the village, appointed by the church, comes out to greet them and bows to Lady Luna. But she's startled when she sees the man has several wanted posters offering a huge bounty. Luna tells the man that Hakuto is the Demon King and that he's working with her, so there's no reason to worry. Then Hakuto steps in and tells the guy that from now on, Luna will be in charge of the village, and things are going to change. The man tries to say he has to report it to his superiors first, but Hakuto makes it very clear. He and Luna are in control now. He orders the man to return to the church, or wherever he came from, and spread the word that Luna is now officially back in charge. Immediately, the guy hops into a horse-drawn wagon and rushes off to gossip the news. Once he's gone, Hakuto tells Luna that if she lets him stay, he'll improve the village. Things will get a lot better with him there. And that makes Luna really happy. Then we see a couple of bunny-eared girls named Momo and Kion working sadly in an orchard. From their conversation, we learn that the crops are failing, and they don't have money to buy water or soil crystals to grow anything. Hakuto goes to Luna to check out what's going on in the fields, and she explains that the race of those girls is called Boonies. Apparently, the ancient Karubi people used to worship them, but later they were banished by the Kingdom of Holy Light, a nation that hates any race that isn't human. Because of that, the Boonies ended up in a state of poverty and abandonment. Seeing how down Luna is about the whole thing, Hakuto randomly slaps her butt out of nowhere, with no real reason. Luna gets super mad about it, but it does snap her out of her depression. After that, the group meets with Kion and Momo to talk about what's going on, and Hakuto asks Luna why she never stepped in before. As a sort of half-hearted excuse, Luna says she was taught since childhood not to get involved in such worldly matters. Hakuto then asks the bunny girls if there's a well in the village, and they take him there. But when they arrive, they discover the well is completely dry, no water left at all. They also don't have the money to buy water crystals. Immediately, Hakuto activates his admin privileges and pulls out an item that can help the village. Even though the well is dry, he summons a pulley device and installs it. Then he asks Aku to turn the mechanism and draw water. She obeys, and to everyone's shock, she pulls up a full bucket of water from the empty well. She does it again, another full bucket. Seeing this miracle, the bunny girls are stunned. They can't understand how water is coming from a completely dry well. Luna then asks how it's possible, and Hakuto explains that the pulley is a magical tool from his homeland. It can produce fresh water even under these conditions. The next step is to fix the agriculture problem. So Hakuto activates his powers again, and a fertilizer drops out of a dark portal. Then he says they'll need to work the fields as much as necessary, and most importantly, keep the secret of the magical pulley. Seeing all this, Luna approaches Hakuto and says that, in the end, he actually seems like a nice guy. But he just smiles and confesses that he's doing all of this because he needs the girls to work at the clinic and also at the hot springs for him. This doesn't seem to bother Luna, since that way the village will improve and she'll even end up getting a bigger allowance. Meanwhile, somewhere else, there's a meeting going on between the eldest of the Sacred Maidens and Lubreza. They're talking about Luna and Hakuto, and the nobles inform the maiden that her sister seems to be traveling with the Demon King, and now they control their own village. That news enrages the lady more than anything. A fat noble tries to comment on the situation, but he's interrupted by someone else who says that the informant called Blitz the Powerist is exaggerating the things Hakuto caused. After some arguing, the nobles leave and the queen enters the hall, and suddenly she completely changes her posture and takes on a super kind attitude. Her sister asks how Luna is doing, since she knows the queen met her in the village of Arhu. Luna appears a bit, but the queen is completely spaced out and doesn't answer anything, until her sister mentions the Dragon King who fought to protect them. And in that moment, the queen confesses that she's in love with him and starts screaming and rolling on the floor, saying that Zero is amazing. The situation gets even weirder, because the queen even has a plush toy of Zero, and she keeps yelling that she needs to see him. And then she dives into her own clothes and does things that really scare the third sacred maiden. Shortly after, we meet two new characters called Organ and Minky. They're S-rank adventurers and are at the Noma Noma bar, where Yukikaze and Mikan are also hanging out. They came to drink and get new missions to make money. Organ and Mikan are chatting about the rumors of a Dragon King, but Organ is sure it's just gossip, because something like that would already be known by everyone. Then the bar owner shows up and reveals Hakuto's wanted poster, so they take it and leave right away to search for him. This really irritates Mikan and Yukikaze, who were sitting nearby, especially Yukikaze, who's obsessed with Hakuto. Then Hakuto goes with his group to a fancy restaurant recommended by Luna, and they're treated with great respect. Soon a waiter arrives and Luna tells them to serve them with care, since this is a very special occasion for a friend of hers. The man soon returns with a luxurious and varied meal, and everyone cheerfully toasts to Hako's foot healing. But one thing is still missing. Hakuto steps out of the room for a moment, and the waiter brings something special to the table. At that moment, he summons something unknown to us, coming from the dark portal he usually uses. After a while, we see the waiter arrive at the table. He lifts the lid of a dish on a hidden cart, revealing a delicious strawberry pie. All the girls are delighted by the taste of this gift from Hakuto. Hako and even Yu say, "This must be what happiness feels like." Suddenly, a lady with a radiant aura appears, dressed in fancy clothes, and she interrupts the group to greet Luna. Hakuto recognizes her as an important person and tries to be as polite as possible with her. So he introduces himself and invites her to stay with them. The lady introduces herself and reveals that her name is Butterfly, and she agrees to join them. But at that moment, Luna tries to say something, very worried, and Hakuto uses his telepathy to ask what it is, which surprises the girl. But she manages to say that Butterfly is a kind of queen among the nobles, so he must be careful not to make her an enemy. Hakuto says he has a plan, and intends to earn her trust right away. Shortly after, we see the lady sitting at the table with the others, and Hakuto tells her why they're celebrating. So she also congratulates Hako on her recovery, and asks if this is their first time in the city. The girl replies that she's right, and that everything feels too beautiful to be real. Then Butterfly asks Hakuto the same thing, and clearly addresses him as the Demon King. He replies that this is an incredible place, different from the awful places she had to pass through during her journey to the city. That answer pleases her greatly, and she says that people usually compare the kingdom's areas to heaven and hell. She then says she'd love to hear more about his wisdom. That's when Hakuto launches his plan. He immediately answers that if he were ruler of the kingdom, he would make every place a true paradise. But Hakuto has another goal. Instead of ruling this paradise, his goal would be to reach the top of the kingdom. Then he summons a bar of soap like the one he used on Hako, way back at the beginning, and gives it to Butterfly. This really confuses her, but Luna excitedly says it's a magical soap that makes your skin amazing. At those words, the other girls at the table show their skin, and it's literally glowing. Hakuto insists that she should use the soap tonight to test its power. Butterfly is very happy and thanks him for the gift. Then Hakuto takes the opportunity to explain that his great idea is to open a hot spring in the village of Reb, which will be a place where the power of the waters will make you feel reborn. For a while, Hakuto keeps telling her about the wonders he plans for Luna's village, and the noble finally believes him. Then she asks Luna to keep this secret from her sister, and Luna asks if Butterfly and her sister don't get along. Suddenly, there's a huge explosion, and an earthquake shakes the restaurant. Then a terrified waiter rushes into the room, warning everyone that it's a Satanist attack on the city. To stop them, Hakuto heads to the roof of the restaurant. He tells Yuki to protect the people inside. Luna also stays there, since Hakuto thinks she could be a target of this coordinated attack. She asks Ako, worried, if he's being attacked. Hakuto interprets it as if she were his daughter and he were her father, and then he jumps to the rooftop. He runs across the city looking for the enemies, but they keep appearing. At that moment, we see Mikan and Yukikaze, who are fighting to save some people from the Satanists. Mikan is about to be hit by an ice attack from one of the men, but her partner saves her at the last second. Then Yukikaze summons an ice hand that grabs several Satanists and launches an ice attack against them. But in seconds, the two are surrounded by enemies. Just then, Hakuto appears to protect them. Hakuto shows up on top of a house and attacks the men with his signature red blades, making them kneel before him. Finally, he summons a giant chunk of ice and slams it to the ground, leaving the Satanists seriously injured. However, one of them cuts off his own hand with a dagger, and suddenly a symbol appears on his palm. From that mark emerges a floating red mist, and through it appears a large demon dressed as a jester. The name of this demon is Carnival, and upon seeing him, everyone tries to run. But the bounty hunters realize there's a barrier around the entire area, so the only way to get out is by defeating the demon. And at that moment, Hakuto throws a rock at him to stop him from speaking, and Carnival, horrified, wonders who the damned insect was that did that to him. At that moment, Hakuto says it was him who threw the rock with all the boldness possible, and that makes the demon launch an attack on him immediately. But just by looking at him, Hakuto stops him and makes him retreat. And then he powers up and says that he already killed the demon before, and it was probably too easy. So he hopes now there's a bit of a challenge. Then Hakuto launches Carnival into the air with a single blow and finishes him off just like he did with the forest monster. And as soon as the barrier is broken, everyone gathers around Hakuto to thank him and congratulate him and offer something for what he did. Then Yukikaze approaches him. Very excited, she asks Hakuto's name and starts flirting with him. But then Mikan shows up, and Hakuto finds out that Mikan likes the Dragon King more. On the Satanist side, we see that their leader receives news about one of the groups failing the attack, and that makes him furious because they acted ahead of time. So they send the little girl called Tron to inform the other two groups about what happened, and to fulfill her role once and for all. She leaves sadly because she was called a half-blood, and thus the second part of the plan begins. Meanwhile, a character appears in a restaurant, and he's a clown, trying to entertain the nobles with his tricks. But his true intention is to kill Luna. He sees that she's apparently unguarded and alone at the table, and immediately the man approaches Luna's table and the other girls. He starts complimenting the girls, and then Yu stands up and asks if he can teach her a magic trick. Then we see that Yu used some of her powers, and now both arms of the man carry her power. She places them in an instant but upside down, and this scares the man because he doesn't understand what's going on. Finally, she puts the arms on him and approaches his ear to scare him even more. Why did she do all that? Actually, she knows the guy is carrying poison in his pocket, so she tells him that if he comes near that table again, she'll dismember his whole body. On the other side of the city, we see some demons advancing on the girls while being eliminated by the Queen and Fuji. Even the two zombie-like demon sisters appear and are quickly taken out with help from an old guard. Elsewhere, Mink fights a group of Satanists that she herself is organizing. She rests calmly on a rooftop, and we can see she's so powerful that she summons a kind of rain that wipes out an entire group of enemies. After that, she turns and uses a control spell on some clergymen to make sure they follow her and help. Near the Queen and her allies, another group of Satanists gathers. There, they confirm the death of the previous group at Hakuto's hands, so they all decide to sacrifice themselves to take the city and perform that same ritual a man used to summon Carnival. The group cuts off their own hands, and from them comes the red cloud that consumes their bodies and souls. At the same moment, we see a pale man named Olut. He appears in the sky, and we identify him as the Prince of Darkness. Almost at the same time, Angel, the eldest sacred maiden, appears. She looks out from the balcony of the holy castle and sees the prince right in front of her. Facing danger, she summons a magical barrier with her power that covers the whole city, and she stays there holding the barrier. At that moment, the queen also sees the prince and Fuji charges at him, but the demon fires a beam from his eye that hits him. Then Olu tries to break Angel's barrier, which forces her to use even more power, and it starts affecting him. To fight the prince, the queen kicks Fuji, who's on the ground, and grabs from her back the weapon that belongs to her, a huge sacred hammer. After grabbing the hammer, the queen launches herself at Olut. She manages to land a hit, but he counterattacks. Her defense isn't enough. The queen is then hit by Olut's attack. Ming appears in the scene to help her and manages to stop the prince for a moment. But suddenly something falls from the sky and traps both women. We see Tron with a chest containing Hades. That basically seals the end of the battle, because right after, Olut fires a beam straight at the girls, and they're left practically unconscious. At that moment, the queen hears Angel's desperate scream and replies, telling her to maintain the barrier instead of helping her. Soon after, we find out that Hakuto is watching everything from beside the castle. Since he simply can't show his power in front of the girls, he decides to become Zero again and lets him take control of the situation. And so the Dragon King enters the scene once again. The queen even greets him with screams of joy, but right after she's kicked far away by Olut. When the Dragon King approaches the prince, he vanishes, while Hakuto keeps walking and stares down the demon. With a few strikes, Hakuto sends Olut flying. Olut counterattacks with a beam but misses the target. Olut panics and realizes that Tron is still hovering nearby. He then launches an attack at her to absorb her blood. The prince pierces the girl's body, and after saying her blood is almost unbearable, he simply lets her fall to the ground bleeding. And then, while Tron is unconscious, we get a glimpse of her past. She was an abandoned child taken in by the Satanists, with no clear purpose in life. But at that moment, she hears Zero's voice shouting for her to wake up, and when she opens her eyes, her body is already much better. Turns out Zero made her eat an item that restores life, and with that, he managed to save her. Then he asks her to smile because she looks too sad, but she says she simply forgot how to do that. Seeing that the girl healed, Olut believes she's a kind of powerful dragon, and he plans to use all his strength to attack. So the prince opens his chest, and suddenly a portal emerges from it, and he transforms into a sort of chimera, half wolf and half bat. Then Zero turns his back to Tron and tells her to smile because those who do that like fools always succeed. And with strikes directly to the demon's head, using his all-or-nothing skill, he smashes Olut into pieces, making him vanish. Then he reappears and all the people are shouting with joy that the threat has disappeared. Then Zero turns and asks Tron if she remembered how to smile, and the girl responds by hugging him while crying. But at that moment, the queen also shows up and hugs Zero from behind very tightly. She tells him she'll never let him go. That situation ends up embarrassing Zero, and he asks her to let him go, saying they shouldn't be hugging like that in public. A little later, Hakuto meets Angel in his usual disguise and asks her to call him Demon Lord. Then at the castle, they talk about meeting her sister, and he tells her that he has a very good relationship with her sister Luna. After a while talking, Angel asks what his intentions are with Reno, and he replies that this will be seen through his own actions. Then he asks if there's a library where he can study about seraphs, but Angel says she doesn't feel safe with that, although she still lets him use the library to do his research. However, he refuses to give information about exactly what he's looking for. Hakuto thanks her for the favor, and to gain her sympathy, he says that in any case, it would be very difficult to speak to someone as sacred as her. And then he says goodbye to the maiden, but before leaving she asks if he really killed the Demon King, and Hakuto replies that it's a shame he's even called Demon King because he seemed more like a cheap imitation. This answer makes Angel even more worried because someone like the Demon King doesn't seem to stand a chance against Hakuto. And right after leaving, he checks his skill points after yesterday's battle. He realizes he can build hot springs in the hospital without any problem, and now he can also teleport to places he has already been, and even summon more helpers. This makes him let out an evil laugh, and Akko immediately notices it and runs up to him to ask how it went. Hakuto picks Akko up in his arms and says that everything is going well with the saint, and that makes Akko very happy. Hakuto thinks they look more and more like a happy father and daughter, and then we see Akko and Hakuto arriving at the library, but there they don't find anything useful about seraphs, because all the books they found seem more like Western fantasy stories. But before leaving, Akko asks Hakuto to read her a story about a dog named Fido. He is rejected in the city and ends up wandering through a dungeon where he meets a cute little female dog. He defends her, and after wandering the dungeon for a while, he reaches a treasure room. At that moment, Hakuto sees a librarian passing by. He asks if it's true that weapons and armor drop in dungeons, and the boy quickly answers that it's something that happens quite often. Then Hakuto returns to the inn with Akko and asks her to go ahead, because he's thinking about something very important. He needs something that helps him resist this world's magic, since he's only affected by magic that doesn't belong to the Infinity Game. Suddenly, while lighting a cigarette in an alley, Tron appears behind him and happily says she finally found him. She calls Hakuto Zero and reveals that she has the power to see beyond what's in front of her, seeing people's emotions and souls, something like fortune-telling. She says she wants to see Zero again, but he says he'll only let her see if she obeys him and works hard for him. So from that moment, Tron becomes part of Hakuto's future plans. Even though she's just a child, later Hakuto introduces his new companion to the others, and Luna senses that Tron also has a demon inside her. That takes Hakuto by surprise, But he manages to convince Luna that she shouldn't let herself be influenced by those things. For someone as superior as her, she must know how to deal with all types of people, species, and races. So Luna ends up accepting it, but makes it clear that if Tron tries anything bad, she will change her mind. Then Hakuto asks about telepathy and asks Yu if she can teleport with them to Rebi, and she confirms it clearly. But when he asks the other girls to hold on to him for a quick trip, Yu also grabs his arm. In an instant, they arrive at the outskirts of Luna's village and are welcomed by Kion and Momo. They manage to improve the harvest thanks to Hakuto, and he quickly summons a low-level base at the site. Then he combines other elements to create a real hospital, and suddenly a huge white building appears before them. They go inside to check if everything is in order, and once inside, Hakuto and Yu have a conversation about what payment method they should use in the village, and then they reach a conclusion. First, they will assign a yen value to the different material currencies of the kingdom, such as copper, silver, or gold. And secondly, Hakuto decides that beggars and low-income people will pay much less than nobles and the rich. This idea seems very good to Yu, and she smiles mischievously and tells Hakuto that he has changed compared to before, and he says that acting the same as before would mean being stuck in the past. And after that conversation, Hakuto visits the famous hot springs near the hospital. He brags a lot about it, and we see that there are different types of baths well equipped in several apartments where residents can stay. The next step now is to get employees, so Hakuto asks for help from Kyo and Momo, and later gathers the villagers to explain everything to them. Then he retreats to an area with bamboo plants, and there he summons his next ally named Tahara. He is a specialist in weapons and combat skills, and was assigned to protect the village when Hakuto is not around. After a few seconds, we see a tired-looking man come out of a beam of light in front of Hakuto, and as soon as Tahara sees him, he recognizes him as his chief master and asks him where they are, and Hakuto invites him into the hot spring building. There he explains to Tahara that they are in a fantasy world, where the great empire that existed in the 18th century infinite game is unknown. He also says that Yu is around, and that really scares Tahara because that woman is very sadistic. Even so, Tahara thinks for a moment and asks Hakuto what he intends to do in that world. And Hakuto replies that first he wants to manage the impoverished village they are in, and for that he explains to Tahara that he will have to take care of the place's protection and also manage various local services. That catches him by surprise, and he protests about having to take on that responsibility. But Hakuto tries to calm him down at that moment, but when Tahara touches his shoulder, he feels a huge cramp in his body, and Hakuto suggests he go see Yu. Maybe he is sick or just in pain, and at that exact moment, Yu appears on the scene scaring Tahara, and soon after she and the other girls also arrive to meet the new guy. The next morning, Hakuto goes to see again the pawn shops of the man we saw earlier. He brings him another object from his world, and this time it's a music box that uses 2 keys, and Hakuto decides to test the man, letting him clearly decide the price. The pressure is so high that the man ends up giving 15 gold coins so that Hakuto doesn't take the product to another store or get angry at him. The next stop for Hakuto is the clothing store he used to visit with Haku, and there he places an order for his business. Hakuto asks the store manager or his assistant to reproduce 2 types of work uniforms as quickly as possible. Although it's a rather strange request, Hakuto pays a lot of money for it. That way he ensures that the uniforms are delivered as quickly as possible. Then he says he will offer 2 more gold coins when they are finished. And after that they make a food purchase at the place, and thus bring more supplies to Rebi village. That night, when they arrive in the village, Hakuto secretly tries to control Zero and reverse the change in his will, even though this is clearly very difficult. On the other hand, we see that the whole village is ready. They are happy in the garden, harvesting carrots, and after that they go to the hot springs to join together and have fun. In the other building, Tahara teaches the group of Banes how to clean the place and keep it completely tidy. After that, he meets Kyo and Momo. They were trying on their new bunny uniforms. Even though she thinks it's a bit embarrassing, Tahara tries to teach them some manners. And he can't help but imagine his younger brother wearing some similar clothes, which is a really strange part of it, since he has a very close relationship with her, which is kind of weird. But moving on, we see a carriage arriving at the entrance of the hot springs, and Butterfly gets out of it. Along with an old man named Sambo, Hakuto comes out to greet her along with Tahara, and he apologizes to her for not having prepared everything in the best way. But she is delighted with everything. And after that, the lady explains to them that they brought a retired soldier so that he can visit something good before leaving this world. And then Hakuto asks why they blindfolded him. And he replies that many years ago a magic beast took his eyes. and Hakuto immediately offers to visit Yu and heal his eyes, and this surprises both the old man and Butterfly. But if there is the slightest chance of saving his sight, he agrees to accompany them wherever they go. Soon they arrive with Yu, and there she examines Sambo. To avoid scaring the visitors, the doctor only uses medicine to help them, since her power called God's Hand would be too much for them to understand. Then Yu puts some gel over the old man's eyes, and when she tells him to open them again, his vision is completely restored. This makes the old man cry with happiness, and Butterfly sends him back to his master so that he won't be a bother. Next, he offers a slightly different coin to Yu as thanks. This coin is worth approximately 100 large gold coins. That seems a bit too much for her, but Butterfly declares that the old man now owes a favor, because that's worth more than any coin. And Yu accepts his gift, and the two come to the conclusion that they will be great friends. Now we see a bit of Luna's past, when she was just a little girl. She was running through the kingdom, and on one occasion, she had an encounter with a group of very unpleasant young nobles. They despised her and her friend for being poor, but Luna, instead of staying silent, warned that in the future, she would be part of the church and would become the Holy Maiden. At that moment, she would make them pay for treating them that way, and the nobles leave with disgust at those words. Luna, however, was radiant and very convinced that she deserved a much better life, because she was doing her best to have it. After 2 years from that event, Luna was accepted as a Holy Maiden apprentice by the church, and her wish was clearly granted. But things didn't go the way she expected. She had asked to bring along her childhood friend, who was a commoner, and at that moment, the religious man who had accepted Luna as a future Holy Maiden smiled. He told her that they had all been executed, because according to him, they were demi-humans. And that is considered an unforgivable sin by the church, and Luna, shocked by the news, held on to him, saying that her friend and the others hadn't done anything. Even so, the religious man warned her to be careful with who she associated with if she really wanted to become a Holy Maiden someday. At 10 years old, Luna finally became a Holy Maiden and was granted permission to use light magic and even gold magic. That's because everyone knew her great ability to use magic. And besides that, at the time, she also received Rebi Village, even though the villagers always reminded her of a friend who was executed, and that if she had greater power, maybe she could have saved him. At that moment, we see Luna praying to the cherub, asking for strength, but suddenly she wakes up and hears Rakuto's voice. And then, we go back to the present day, where Rakuto asks Luna to stop talking in her sleep, and asks her to put the plan with Madame Butterfly into action right away. Luna immediately runs off to meet her, and she almost drags the woman through the various baths they have there. But first, while Kion and Momo wash the woman's body and hair until she is completely radiant. After that, she takes her for a carbon dioxide bath that makes the skin shiny and soft. And next, she also bathes in herbal hot springs, which refresh and relax the mind. There, the woman notices that Luna is in love with Rakuto because of the way she helps him, and the pride she feels for the place. Even though Luna tries to deny it at all costs, Butterfly advises her to take care of her feminine side if she wants him to notice her. To change the subject, Luna takes the woman to a salt sauna to spend some time and shows her how that kind of bath works. That's the final step to convince Butterfly that the place is truly wonderful. Then we see Angel telling the Queen that Butterfly went on vacation and went to Rebi. This fact is considered by Angel as a crisis for them. For now, the Demon King has conquered that noble, but the Queen says she doesn't see this as a big problem. She says it's better to let things go as they are, since her sister Luna seems to be in love with Rakuto. Angel insists that this is something serious that they need to deal with, but the Queen still doesn't pay attention to it. And it gets to the point where she teases her sister, saying she hopes that one day she finds love, like she did with Zero. And after that, we see that Yu went to meet Tahara. She's working on rebuilding the village. The doctor asks him if he's not happy with the location of the buildings, and he says no, and that Rakuto didn't give him permission to make the changes and adjustments he needs. When Yu finds out that he has Rakuto's permission, she changes her attitude, becoming much sweeter, which Tahara really misses. And he asks her what the reason for that change in mindset is, and she used to look at the children. She says that the chief is the only man she's been thinking about for a long time, and gets all happy talking about it, and Tahara tries to keep her in a good mood. Then she wonders if the boss is very happy with the profits she got thanks to her work. And then she suggests that they ask Madame Butterfly about the layout of the places in the village, but that immediately makes Tahara very angry and worried. He says that he does not intend to let any noble act in his village, and he also asks her if she forgot what happened in the city the previous night, and the atmosphere becomes much colder and quieter for a moment. And after that, Yu apologizes for her careless comment upon understanding the situation. But once again, he asks her if she is really happy with Rakuto's proposal of following a different path from the Great Empire. She says that she is being moved by the guilt of the world, which made her feel the presence of God in Rakuto. That makes Tahara laugh uncontrollably, but she makes it clear to him that she is serious, and that this feeling grows stronger each time. After that, Yu decides to do a checkup on Rakuto, though this is actually an excuse to get closer and more intimate with him. He quickly feels very uncomfortable and decides to leave, leaving Yu a little disappointed. The next thing we see is that everyone is together, and after that, Rakuto takes a relaxing bath in the hot springs. Suddenly, Tron appears and offers to wash his hair, constantly calling him Zero. That makes our Rakuto very irritated. After some time of arguing between them, he removes them from the bath. He goes to his room to relax a bit and be alone. After a while, Aku arrives and settles on the big bed used by Rakuto and says that she took an herb bath that day. So Aku ends up once again with Rakuto, but Luna enters in the middle of the night looking for her friend and understands everything wrong. Rakuto replies by telling her to stop imagining unpleasant things, and Luna smiles for a moment when she sees her friend so happy. Suddenly she goes to bed with Rakuto, almost as if she had no choice, and he accepts it to avoid misunderstandings. He puts his arm as a pillow so Luna can sleep on it, and the next morning Rakuto went out to explore the capital while Aku and Luna sleep. While he walks around, we see Yukikaze and Mikan following him, though they do not yet know he is there. At that moment, Yukikaze tells Mika that she has been having many wet dreams about Rakuto, and even now she is still feeling very agitated, and when she looks up she sees him walking in front of them. Then they run to greet him immediately, and this is a bit strange for Rakuto because they treat him like an old friend. They ask what he is doing in the city, and Rakuto says he wants to talk to the Adventurers Guild about the dungeon in the north. But they explain that the guild cannot offer information about something so far away. But actually, that was just an excuse, since Rakuto is looking for information on how to defend against that world's magic. Then Yukikaze invites him to go to her favorite place to drink together, and Rakuto agrees, since he has not relaxed in a long time. Yukikaze then grabs his hand, and he notices that her skin is very white, almost like snow, which is also very soft. He reacts in time and tells them that they should not be walking hand in hand like little kids. Even so, they end up being led by Mika to the Noma Noma bar, while Yukikaze clings to Rakuto's arm. When they get there, the owner is quite surprised to see the company they brought, and the other customers welcome him as a true hero. They are all very grateful to Rakuto for having defeated the carnival a long time ago, and so they buy him a beer, along with Mika and Yukikaze. When the drink is served, Yukikaze grabs the mug and sits on Rakuto's lap to give him a gulp, but he refuses, thinking it is too bold, and does not want to be disturbed while drinking. After a while, the owner comes back and serves him some dishes of food, which Rakuto approves immediately. He comments to the lady that they have something very good in Rab, and she walks away laughing and replies that there is no comparison. After she leaves, Yukikaze keeps doing very strange things with Rakuto, like stealing a skewer of food he was going to eat. And he asks her what the Guild of Adventurers does and what kind of work they do. The two immediately explain to him that there is nothing interesting in their job. The guild just accepts orders and sends them the tasks. Their work is to defeat monsters, explore dungeons, and collect treasures or other monster parts to sell to the guild. They also say the guild is constantly at war with other northern countries, and therefore there are many spies and mercenaries too. That situation worries Rakuto, because in a prolonged war, it affects the economy of any country, and therefore its people too. Then he asks them about the objects in the dungeon, and Mika explains that there are 5. The first type is normal, which are objects made of basic metal and leather. The second type is solid, made from monster fangs or other parts like skin or scales. The third type is high-quality items, made with special materials or metals, and they are made only by dwarves, although there are some items called exclusive items, which can be used by S-rank adventurers, like Mika. And finally, there are legendary items, which are the Queen's Hammer and the Angel's Staffs. After this explanation, Rakuto asks if it is possible in the stores to have an item that is strong against magic or for fighting, but clearly he wanted an item against magic. Then Kikaze explains to him that the items sold in stores are mass-produced and are worth almost nothing, so Rakuto asks them if maybe by paying more, he could get something decent. And Kikaze thinks that would not be possible. Even so, Rakuto prefers to do it himself. While he leaves Tahara taking care of the village's preparations, finally Rakuto decides to go north to check out the dungeons. And Kikaze offers to be his guide, and convinces him, saying it is a B-rank adventure, and that he could use his help for that mission. So he clearly agrees. And as always, Kikaze ends up dragging Mika into it, despite her anger. So the three of them set out for the north. On the other hand, we see Angel apologizing to the Seraphim, because she needs to take the Omega Staff to achieve a miracle. The Maiden's plan is to strengthen her power and thus free her beloved sister Luna from the clutches of that Demon King. She is convinced that Rakuto is keeping her as a hostage and intends to confront or negotiate with him to save Luna. So she uses the staff to teleport to Luna, and suddenly she finds herself in Rebi village. There she is surprised to see Kikaze working and building things in a very organized way, and suddenly Tahara sees the maiden passing and mistakes her for a simple villager. So he scolds her for not doing absolutely anything. Without knowing why, Angel ends up working with some precious stones using her magic until Luna appears, and then her older sister takes the opportunity to tell them that they should leave because the Demon King is betraying her. But Luna laughs when she hears her sister talk. She shows the carrot harvest she managed to grow and tells her that she cannot leave because she needs to manage her territory, and that it is a monstrous job. After saying that, Angel thinks she means they want to turn the place into a base full of demons and monsters. So her concern increases automatically. But the worst is yet to come. At that moment, Tron appears and asks Luna for help. It turns out there is a huge stone blocking the demon, and they need magic to remove it from there. And the magic they need is Luna's magic. But as soon as Angel sees Tron, she realizes that Tron has demon blood. So Luna asks Momo and Kion to accompany her sister to the hot springs, and they go with her very worried. At this point, Angel is convinced that her sister is completely enchanted and that she needs to defeat Hakuto to save her. Soon they arrive at the hot springs and the bunny girls undress Angel so she can bathe in peace. Soon Angel enters the bath and is amazed by the different types that exist. She also remembers the happy moments with her sister, but when she comes out, something frightens her. It turns out that Hakuto was taking a relaxing bath there, and although she thinks it is an ambush, he explains the situation and manipulates her. So she believes he will be seen as a criminal because of it, causing a scene at the place. So he gets Angel to calm down. She enters the water with him, after he gives her a towel to cover her body. This creates a rather awkward situation, as it's the first time a man sees Angel naked, but also her first time seeing one, and she can't focus. Even so, Hakuto manages to bring her to his side, and says that if neither of them is interested in each other's body, they can just talk calmly. Angel answers that she wants to know what he's doing and why he's involved with Luna and Butterfly, so Hakuto makes it clear that no one is being forced to be there, and everyone is with him willingly. This makes Angel very angry, and she approaches Hakuto to scold him, but she can't get too close, as she's too distracted by the situation, something she sees as an insult. So, to make Angel understand why Madame Butterfly is happy there, Hakuto asks Angel to dip her body in the water, and thanks to that she feels great relief and even some strange sensations. Then Hakuto offers her some alcohol, but Angel is afraid it might be poisoned. She uses her power to find out, and Hakuto takes advantage of that. He says the real poison of that kingdom is the people who destroy it, and after that he speaks the truth. Nobody does anything for defenseless people. They live in poverty, being subdued by others with violence. And he tells her that rulers who govern poorly are called incompetent, or clearly useless. Angel can't find any answers, and accepts the fact that she can't argue with him on this. She's just a young woman trying to manage everything. After that, she drinks Hakuto's alcohol from the same cup as him, which makes Angel think of it as an indirect kiss. But Hakuto mocks her girlish attitude. That ends the moment, as Angel remembers what she used to tell her queen, laughing. But she tells Hakuto she already knows he's hard-headed, and that she can't have any feelings. To solve the situation, Hakuto summons a very special gift for her, which perfectly matches her appearance. He takes from a door an angelic halo, which floats onto her head, and he asks her to behave and vanishes in a splash of water, leaving Angel alone with her new gift. A little later, night falls, and Hakuto asks Angel if she came there alone or by carriage, and she says she came alone. And at that moment, he says he will take her to the castle. Then he grabs her by the waist, and seconds later she appears in front of the castle walls. She's completely surprised, as he used the Seraph miracle, something no one else should be able to do. He's also able to summon only those who angels can summon, and because of that she wants to know more about him. So Angel asks again who he is, and Hakuto says he is just someone who would like to earn her support in the future. Then he says he was led to that path by the orphan girl, and this way Angel clears up many of her doubts. She asks Hakuto if he intends to oppose the Seraph, and he admits to her that was never his intention. He says he just wants a few answers and ends the meeting. She tells him the angel halo definitely suits her, and then he vanishes. And we see Angel refers to him as Lucifer, the fallen angel. She doesn't understand how someone so good can be so bad in any way. So she proposes to turn him back into the angel he once was, and she hugs her halo while smiling. Back in Rebi village that night, Hakuto meets with Ako and tells her he'll be traveling for a while. In tears, she asks him to return safely, and he says he can always use instant movement, and then gives her a hug. At that moment, Luna and Tron also appear. They're very tired and just want to go home. So Hakuto ends up sleeping that night with the three girls in a rather uncomfortable way. The next morning, the sun has barely risen, but Hakuto is already getting ready to leave and puts Yu and Tahara in charge of the village. Now that everything has changed, they have the three girls, and he needs to protect them even more, and to do that he must become stronger, so they can't use this world's magic against him and harm his loved ones. After a few words, Hakuto says goodbye to his friends, and gets in a carriage with Yu that joins Mika. As they leave, Tahara tells Yu that this reminds him of the day he met the chief, and that if he hadn't accepted his invitation he would be dead, and then she replies that it's normal, as he's just an insect compared to Hakuto. And finally Hakuto arrives in the city of Roki, along with his two companions, and there they're introduced to four new people. They're known as heroes, and are called blank screens. And there's also a slightly chubby guy who looks like a nerd. He's carrying many shiny objects and weapons. This is the famous hero known as White Comet. The meeting with these guys only seems to announce how hard Hakuto's journey with his two guides will be, and so our story ends for now.